The VEX, what do they know? Do they know things? Let's find out. The VEX are one of the most elusive and fascinating enemies we face. Very little is known about how they work, or do they even time travel? Do they physically move through time, or do they just pass information through a VEX network they built? Not even Drifter is convinced that they can time travel.
Warlocks keep telling me if the VEX could time travel, they'd have won already. Shoot them anyway.
What we do know about the VEX can be summed up into three categories. They came from outside of our universe. They want everything to be them. They are not robots. That's right, they are not robots or even the machines we fight. You know their milky center? Yeah, that's the VEX. The VEX are the organisms inside the radiolaria fluid. Think about that next time you're taking arc damage when walking through their puddles. That's just little VEX nipping at your ankles.
Oh, look, it's a VEX milk waterfall.
The machines we fight are their exosuits, which is canon that they recycle them after we destroy them. Once we destroy them and we leave the battlefield, they come back later to pick up the parts to recycle so they can use again. The VEX are very eco-friendly, confirmed. Clovis Brace sums up the VEX's motivations very clearly. When the world does not match their eternal pattern, they alter the world to suit it. There is no difference between reality and the simulation to them. Inside is the same as outside, and the two must be made to correspond. What I want to talk about today, though, is not the VEX as a whole, but the VEX computers. You can't see it, but I am quoting computers. But I feel like this is a great way to describe them. We have been inside three major VEX computers, and each serves a different function that is important to the VEX and their goals. They are the Vault of Glass, the Pyramidium, and the Infinite Forrest. I've always thought of each one as a giant VEX computer. One is a weapon testing factory. I've always thought of each one as a giant VEX computer. One is a weapon testing factory with other functions, but that is the main function we go to stop. The other is a construction simulation to test out different ways to terraform planets. And the last one is battle simulations to find the best ways to secure the future that they want. Let's start with the Pyramidium, the first VEX computer I want to talk about and one of the coolest strikes we had in year one of Destiny. For those who did not get to experience the strike, the basic story had us going on a revenge quest for Asher Mir against Brachyon. Brachyon had transformed his arm in Ghost, and Asher, who was a little cantankerous, wanted us to destroy the Genesis mind. The doorway into the Pyramidium was located on Io, but it has been stated that there is an entrance on every machine world the VEX control, so there may be a gateway on Nessus that we have yet to find. There is also a possibility that you can see the Pyramidium in Destiny 1 PvP map Crossroads, which was located on Mars. If the VEX are trying to reshape the future, the Pyramidium is part of that plan. This was said to us by Ikora Ray. The entire point of the Pyramidium is learning better ways to machinoform, which is terraforming, but instead of making things more organic, it's making things less organic. They test and pass along different information on the best ways to build their perfect VEX worlds. Brachyon was basically the foreman of the construction crew. He oversaw the development of making changes to Io and passing along any information to and from the greater VEX network. When Asher Mir arrived washed up on the Radiolarian lake, Brachyon took to experimenting on the Guardian, injecting him with Radiolarian fluid and grafting VEX exosuit body parts onto Asher himself. The Pyramidium can even change how it looks. We don't know exactly why, but we do know that Asher saw a different version than we did. We can take guesses as to the reasons. It could be because it's a construction facility, they test out new environments, or the VEX make changes based on the person entering as to confuse them and test their designs against that person's personal abilities. Either way, I would love to see the Pyramidium used again, and it is lore accurate that even if Io never makes a return to the game, we could see another VEX gate entrance. Another VEX computer that is no longer in game is the Infinite Forrest. Osiris says, an infinity of possible worlds so perfectly simulated to be indistinguishable from the experiences I once called reality. I can touch them, taste them, pass lifetimes in them. They grow within this machine like fruit upon a tree. No, a forest of trees. Its fractal expansion nigh unmeasurable. What an awful, destructive machine this is. I must know everything about it. The Infinite Forest's entire job is past, present, and future battle simulations. The VEX want a future where everything in the entire universe is them. The only living being is VEX. The only structures are VEX. The only purpose is the VEX. And in the Infinite Forest, they can run simulations on the best ways to make this happen. No one is actually time traveling in the Infinite Forest. It's all a simulation. We never went to a real past version of Mercury in the Garden World strike. It was just a simulated version of our past. When we'd go on adventures, for those that are new to Destiny, adventures were side missions we used to get in the patrol zones. We saw a dark future. This was the future the VEX want, and they run simulations to make sure their simulated future can be a reality. If you remember, we used to collect simulation seeds as a planetary material to turn into Brother Vance. Well, they are the building blocks of the forest itself. This is also why we were able to rescue Saint 14. He died in a simulation, so we were able to undo the events that led to his death. As we saw, he was always dead and always alive in certain pockets of the forest. Like I said above, the VEX want everything to be them, so running millions upon millions of simulations to make the future they desire possible makes sense. We've even had a major impact on their simulations and changed the future inside the forest. She considered it a moment, then the forest shimmered around them and white maw dimmed in the half darkness. Then pitch black. The floor fell away and Osiris's light held him aloft, sheathed him in thin veneer of armor. Nothing moved. The warlock frowned, lit a solar spark and held it up. It illuminated nothing around him. Did something go wrong with the sequence? I just triple checked. No, she replied. This is it. This is the simulation. He keyed his radio. Go ahead, Osiris, Ikora said. What's happening out there? He replied. Take your pick. We're at war on the moon again. The VEX attacked. And we retaliated. The undying mind is dead. How? A plan and mutual friends. Our mutual friends just changed all projected futures in the Infinite Forest. You don't sound happy about that. I'll be in touch. He cut the transmission. Where are we? He asked Sagira. Where we always were. Simulated Mercury. He couldn't even see stars. How far does this void reach? All the way to the Traveler, for all I know. Take us there. Osiris knew the simulation moved around him, but the typical shimmer of the forest was gone. There was nothing to see. We're here, she confirmed, as he found gravely purchased under his boots. He had never heard her sound so unsure of herself. It was brighter here at the top of a wind-swept dune, but barely. He couldn't see the sun in the purple twilight that hung above him. The breeze roared in his ears. The sphere of the Traveler was gone. In its place, an obsidian monolith, at least twice the size, dominated the sky. In the last city's place was a swirling dust storm, tinged in purple by the dying light. When does this happen? The forest predictions give a window of 2 or 3 decades, depending on a multitude of variables, with a not insignificant chance for acceleration based on specific elements. What elements? Actions of mutual friends. Kill the simulation. Get me to Mercury. The VEX and anyone else controlling the Infinite Forest are able to make changes quickly to reflect new data. While the Scions had control after the Undying Mind was killed, they used the forest to simulate a way for the Red Legion to win. So why didn't we just leave the forest alone? Who cares about a VEX simulation? As long as we never enter the forest, we don't really have any problems, right? Even though the forest is a large time simulator, doesn't make it any less real. The enemies we face can still kill us, still trap us, and sometimes they are even able to leave the forest and enter the real world.
Hey team, copies of the Cabal invasion are trapped inside the Infinite Forest, locked in a combat loop. On the, off chance one of them escapes, possibly armed with world-breaking VEX tech?
Wouldn't be the first time. We'll handle this.
I don't think we really want world-ending angry Cabal made of ones of zeros trying to Pinocchio their way to world domination. I think Osiris had the right idea. Study the forest, see how it works, and how we can use it to our advantage. Short of blowing up the gateway, that would be our best option. While we do have Mercury back, we are unsure if the Infinite Forest is still functional. Last we were told was Brother Vance sealed it from the inside right before the Witness took the planet. The last VEX computer we're going to go over is probably the most famous, the Vault of Glass, a raid that makes anyone's spires start to form. The very first VEX computer we ever stepped inside, and still one of the most mysterious. And with all of its mystery and weird existing outside of time, we still know its purpose, a weapon testing factory. That's really what its purpose is. to test ontological weapons. We see the weapons, and they will mess up any flawless Vogue run, the Gorgons. The VEX want to erase the Guardians from time itself, and so far the only way to do that is if they enter their factory. Can you imagine if they figured out a way to mass produce the Gorgons and just airdrop them into the last city like America finding oil? And I think the raid is set up really well to express that Vault of Glass is indeed a VEX computer. I will preface what I'm about to say by saying that I am fairly computer illiterate. I had to ask like 3 or 4 of my mods for input and their advice about networking and the inner workings of computer systems. I had the vague idea, but I wanted to make sure I was providing you all with the closest to correct information I could. So if I explain this next part poorly, or if I put the wrong term somewhere, I do apologize and would love to hear in the comments what I got wrong. So think of Vault of Glass as a computer and each encounter as getting through the system. Let's start with plates. That would be the system password to log into the computer. We put in the correct code and the gates open for us. Then we make our way to confluxes. Confluxes are mostly used as information relay, but in Vault of Glass, they also act as weapon dampening fields, allowing the system to write enemies out of time itself. So in networking terms, confluxes would be the first part of a firewall, the application gateway firewall. An application level gateway is a security component that augments a firewall or NAT employed in a computer network. Next, we get to oracles. They work directly with the Templar, and the oracles are kind of Templar's boss. The oracles are testing to see if something belongs in the system and then tells the Templar to execute the directive of ridding the vault of the intruder. So the oracles would be the network level gateway and tunneling, while the Templar is the system manager. Tunneling is redirecting network traffic from one port to another to enable a secure access to network traffic and services across firewalls, and also from outside the network. And with the Templar, entry-level system managers oversee an organization's computer activities. The Gorgons are the actual weapons of the Vault of Glass, but they also act as the antivirus. If they see you, you're catching all the hands. And I'm gonna be honest here, I wanted to say if they see you, it's on site, but that felt too punny. I did want you to all know that I was lame enough to think that first though. I don't think I really have to explain what an antivirus is. I think we all know what its function is in our computer, to get rid of the virus. Next, we get to gatekeepers. They are in charge of protecting the server, keeping us from accessing Atheon. They would be the server gateway firewall. This is exactly like the application firewall, but the location is in proximity to the server. Lastly, we have Atheon, the system server itself. Atheon's job is running the Vault of Glass, passing information to and from the greater VEX network, and keeping his workers in line. While Atheon might look tough, he's just a big nerd. He just catalogs, stores, and passes along information. So like I said, I may have gotten some of this wrong, but I think applying real-world networking terms to the Vault of Glass is really interesting. And please correct me in the comments if there are better ways to explain the Vault of Glass encounters using networking terms. The VEX are some of the most interesting enemies we face in the Destiny universe. Very little is known about the inner workings of their network. We aren't even sure who or what is giving them their goals. We know the VEX work mostly as a hive mind and are all on the same page, except for that one weird VEX religious cult that none of the other VEX like, and it's kind of been banished from the greater network. But we're not gonna talk about them. They kind of just mostly just hang out in the Black Garden, the grassy boys, if you will. I hope post final shape we get to see a lot more from the VEX and even travel to their homeworld, 2082 Voltanis. I don't know if we can ever have VEX as an ally, but if there are VEX that worship the darkness, maybe some VEX that are welcome to light could be a possibility one day. Asher is gone, ceasing to exist ever since Avalon, but the Ishtar explorers are still out there, and they could find a way to manipulate the VEX and their network for our benefits. Thank you all for watching the video, and if you enjoyed, please comment, like, and subscribe, and remember, hunters never die.
Never die.